Hello everyone, I'm Ken Arnhofer, and I'm very glad to say I was one of Alan's oldest friends, and he was my greatest childhood friend. You know, it's a curious thing. When you meet someone for the first time, that impression of you, that first impression, is cemented in your head. So I will always remember Alan with the face of that boy that I met in the late 50s. We were about 5 or 6 years old at the time. Our parents had just bought modest homes in Laval. And Alan and I and my cousin Bruce, we hung out together. We would play games in the streets, street hockey and that kind of thing. Alan played a fierce game of Monopoly. He was very, very competitive and very good at it. But you know, that impression of the boy will always be in my head, even through all of his infirmities later in life. I will always have that vision of him in my head. Now, as we grew, Alan and I went to different schools. He went to the Protestant system, and I went to the Catholic schools, and we went to different universities. And even despite all that, we stayed in touch. And at one point he told me that he wanted to teach history and was even thinking about going to Memorial University in Newfoundland to study. But I discussed that with him, and at the end of the day he ended up working for the CBC as a very talented researcher. And within no time he was one of their very good reporters. Alan was really good at making contacts, you know how friendly he was, but he made great news contacts. People gave him great stories, and he did really well on that beat as a Montreal reporter for the CBC. Later on in his life, he moved to Vancouver, and he played a key role in the Vancouver bureau of the CBC. He basically ran the place a lot of the time, and I think we should give credit for his journalistic achievements before he went off to work in public relations. Alan was a tough competitor, and he did really well there. Well, as we progressed in our careers, Alan went on to a personal life that included a marriage to Donna, who was that girl up the street. We knew her family really well. And also Judy, a friend from the school days. Alan and I both loved golf. We were great friends on the golf course and competitors, but it was never really about the game, it was all about the friendship. Now, as Alan went off to Vancouver and different stages of his life, we suffered the loss of Donna. He had another marriage, and we managed to stay in touch even through all those years, which I think was really a great accomplishment. Whenever I talked to Alan in the last number of years, we always had great conversations about politics, about the state of the world, about all sorts of things. He would tell me about his family and I about mine. And I always treasured those calls. And then later it became really important to maintain the connection when he was going through his infirmity in the last stages within the last year or so. I was shocked by that. And I knew Alan as a vibrant person. So to have him lose all of his faculties in that awful, tragic, painful way was just tragic, sad. But Alan was such a great example of stoicism, of bravery, of courage. I can't really say enough about how inspirational he was, and I think we see that all around us today. But even with all of that awfulness associated with his condition, he never really changed. In my opinion, Alan was always that terrific kid I grew up with across the street in Laval. I will always see him that way. He was my greatest friend, my greatest childhood friend, and I'm proud to say I knew Alan Dever.